stars be with you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this video on the lunar eclipse in Pisces. It actually is the eclipse today, here, September 17th, 2024. And yeah, I thought I would pop on and do a little video about this eclipse. I know it's um, very Pisces term, better late than never. So there's a lot to share about this eclipse because it is an entry point of the eclipses that are going to be coming for the next couple years. So we are at a turning point of events that is bringing to full light the changes and transitions that we are going to move into in our personal lives and also in the collective. And so I'm calling this video Assimilating Soul Information. And why that is because this is a mutable eclipse. And so we're going to return to mutable eclipses, which we haven't had since, I believe, 2020, when we had the Gemini and Sagittarius eclipses, while we were going through the pandemic. And these are changeable times, and they have a lot to do with information and the development of information. And so, when it comes to mutable signs and information, we consider Gemini as the collection of information, Virgo as the organization of information, Sagittarius as the distribution of information, and Pisces as the assimilation of information, where we take it in, we absorb it, and we fully understand it. And so there's lots of motion taking place, and we are creating stories, we're taking in stories, we're feeling out our own stories, and there's a big soul dynamic going on. And so, yeah, I woke up this morning and it is so quiet around here, which around in my house here in San Diego, that is not necessarily the case. A lot of times there's a lot of dogs barking and cars driving by and um, construction, you name it, there's a sound going on. But Pisces slows things, it quiets things because it's hard to hear the soul when there's a lot of noise going on. So, as we sink into this eclipse, it's a wonderful time to take a moment of meditation, a moment of quiet, a moment of just sitting with yourself to see what you feel and what comes up. Um, because these are, even though there's information with the mutable eclipses and we're feeling the changes, unlike the very dynamic social energy of the Gemini Sagittarius axis, these are what we consider receptive signs or feminine signs, where Virgo and Pisces are more about intaking and feeling out, and there being a slower pace, right? We have Pisces ruled by Jupiter, and we have Virgo ruled by Mercury. And I'm just going to go ahead and share the chart real quick so you can see what is going on as I talk about it. Oh, this is the this is the chart that I started this under, so let's get to our eclipse. All right. So as you can see here, we have the eclipse at 25 degrees of Pisces, sandwiched between Saturn and Neptune. And that is a big piece because the next main conjunction that is, or what we call grand conjunctions that are going to be happening in the sky, is going to be the Saturn Neptune. So there's so much that is precursor to this eclipse energy, and why it's important to sit with the soul and sit with the structures of our lives and the boundaries that we hold, or the boundaries that we need to dissolve in some ways. And boundaries can look very, sometimes we think about that as being the outside world and how that's affecting us, but we hold boundaries with ourselves. We hold boundaries with our soul. And so there is this signature. But what's important to point out is it's not actually moving between Saturn and Neptune entirely. Jupiter is actually, the moon is going to square Jupiter after Saturn, and then before it makes the conjunction with Neptune. So it's lighting up the Jupiter Saturn square too, which we received the first pass of in mid-August. And I know a lot of people felt the dynamic of their life is changing, right? But there's this Pisces uncertainty about it. And that can be with Jupiter and Gemini, there's this need for logic and rational steps, collecting the right information, right? We talked about Gemini as being the collection of information. Uh, but sometimes we don't know it all. We can try to research it as much as we want. We can try to piece our minds out and get into analysis paralysis over things. We can have so many ideas about the possibilities before us, but there might still be this mystery that we must sit with and meditate on. And the reason that mystery is there is because I think one of the big powers of Pisces is that it is the imaginal realm. This is where we envision something that our soul is calling for. And that can be many different things for many different people. But that envisioning process, that faith process, that mysterious force of intuition that guides us, that really we have to learn to trust. I mean, how we think that facts and logic are guiding us most of the time, but they're really not. When we think about intuition and instinct and that inner force, sort of that high priestess energy that is drawing us towards a certain person, a certain destination, a certain calling, certain purpose, that is what is coming up within this Piscean energy. So we have this Jupiter connection, right? And so we're going to have, we're on to the future. We're thinking about the possibilities. We may be overwhelmed with information or not enough information. And it's okay to just dream, right? Pisces can be on the I don't want to call it the negative side, but the more challenging side, I guess we could say. It can be messy, it can be nebulous, it can be uncertain, it can be addictive. There's a big quality to this lunar eclipse that can enter people that have addictive tendencies, whether it was substance abuse or just addictions to doing certain things that aren't necessarily healthy or in their best interests for on a soul level. This is a wonderful time to, I guess we can say, Virgo, clean that up. New regiments, new routines, right? There's an indulgence that comes with Pisces. There's a sacrificial element, which sacrifice for the self can not always be in the best interest, but sometimes we do need to sacrifice something, or someone, or a possession, or a belief, especially a belief, to be able to move into this next chapter. Because change is coming. We are in transition. And one of the difficult things about the Jupiter Saturn square for a lot of people is the uncertainty when you're in the limbo state of what comes next. And so I guess we could say indulge in the fantasy if it feels right to be in the dream mode. But if you're indulging in fantasies or have been in a way that is not necessarily healthy or helps move to that next stage at a deep soul level, then this is the time to challenge it. So with, mutable is a double-bodied energy. So we have to sit with the duality of life. And luckily, Virgo on the high side is about order and practicalities, specificities, routine, details, cleanliness, discernment. And these are all wonderful things when we're trying to decipher what is going on in a more nebulous space. But sometimes those things can trip us up when we think about perfectionism and everything needs to be just so. And sometimes we need that Pisces energy that's like, you know what? Go with the flow. See where it takes you. Be imperfect because imperfect is perfect in its own way. Not in the mind's way, but in the soul's way, in the grander design of things. Pisces is about inspiration and empathy. And we need to have empathy for where we're at in the world, for where others are, for the collective situation. most importantly for ourselves. A lot of people don't give themselves enough empathy, especially when you're going through a difficult situation, or need to make changes, or uh, or implement new boundaries, or as we said earlier, dissolve certain boundaries. But sometimes empathy needs to be there. Pisces and all water signs are built to connect. And we're not talking about air connection where we're sharing ideas and we're, in this more, uh, I guess, just airy space, right? We're connecting on a heart level, a soul level, an emotional level. And in order to do that, we have to be able to empathize with ourselves and with others, because that is where the connection is the strongest. This eclipse, maybe now in the moment, but keep in mind eclipses have a longer shelf life, right? At least 6 months when we're thinking about until we make it to the next eclipse season. But depending on how long the eclipse is, it can be even longer than that. And there's certain activations of the planets that will trigger the storyline in different ways. So, and hence why I'm doing this video, because it's not just the moment. Because it's an introductory eclipse and because it's an eclipse, there's a longer story here. But with Pisces, there can be divine intervention. And divine intervention is always such an interesting thing because we don't see it coming. We don't have control over it. We have control over ourselves when we meet it. And divine intervention can be your dreams coming true. It's a miracle. Or it could be like, I can't believe this is happening. But we have to be careful with myopic vision, because divine intervention is a wonderful thing. Even if it doesn't look wonderful in the moment, it can be wonderful on the other end of things, because it's all in service to the soul's purpose and the soul's journey. So we must come back to that. We must come back to that understanding, because this is where we need faith in life. We need faith in a higher power or a higher understanding, or just our higher selves, depending on what you believe. Everybody believes something different, and that belief is right for them until it isn't. And that's another thing with Pisces, right? Especially with this square to Jupiter and then the conjunction to Neptune, it's a wonderful time to challenge your beliefs and why you might adhere to them, and if they're serving your purpose, right? Because we are in need of a spiritual connection. We are highly sensitive now. We're feeling all the feels. If there are places in your life where you might have felt victimized, um, and having a hard time getting over certain griefs, this is the time to make peace with that, or at least to start the change, to letting go and surrendering, and moving forward, because no one wants to feel victimized. No one wants to live in past pain. No one wants to wallow in the past and what has happened, no matter what the slight may be. So there's a wonderful opening for cathartic release, for healing, for letting tears flow, right? Cry it out. If you have something that your heart is heavy about, release that, because those tears are renewing energy, right? That release can be so powerful, especially during a lunar eclipse. Because our intuition is strong, and we just have to trust our gut right now about whatever it is that we're feeling and we're led to, within reason, of course. But I think that is an important part of it. And why creative work? If you're inspired, if we're accessing this, our imagination, in our vision and our clairvoyant tendencies, uh, tap into that. Get it while it is here. Or this might be the beginning of that cycle for you as well. And also looking at how we sacrifice for others and how we're of help to others and to the world. And if that is in balance, do we need more of that? Would our lives be better? A lot of people say when people are in depression or darker times in their life, that retraction into isolation or solitude and that hermit mode, what we think of Virgo, is only good long enough until it's until it's not, right? We must give back to others. We must get out of our own problems to reconnect to our ourselves and the how it feels good to be alive and to be and to contribute to something larger than yourself. So I forgot I'm looking at the chart here. I'm just spitballing here. I'm just spitballing in my Pisces. I have a Pisces South node, so I suppose I come from the land of Pisces and other in another life, if you believe in such things. But yeah, so I wanted to bring some of that up. One of the things that I also want to talk about is in this chart is the it all comes down to Mercury, right? I'm talking about Neptune, I'm talking about Jupiter, I'm talking about the luminaries. But when we look at the chain of command, as I like to call it, we have the moon going looking to Jupiter, who's looking to Mercury. That sun is in Virgo and it's looking to Mercury. And Mercury is currently in a opposition with Saturn retrograde. So we're in one of two places. We're in the depth of thought. Our minds can go deep. We're focused on serious subjects and the structure of our reality and how we can improve it and make it better and piece it out. But we also might be confronted with limited perceptions. You might want to ask yourself if you are in a limited perception sort of space, what is your repeating tape loop? What is that same thought or that same belief that you just keep circling back around? And can you surrender it, at least in this moment, to stop the cycle? Because if you can surrender, you might be surprised how it just resolves itself. The issue is resolved because it's not continue. There's the boundary with it, right? We talk about Saturn in the boundary. So we're looking for discernment for our expansion. We're looking to solve problems. Um, we're wanting to let go so we can find those automatic solutions. And sometimes there's doubt or seriousness that comes up because it's called for, sort of what I was talking about earlier with people that might be wrestling with addiction tendencies. Or fantasy, when you're caught in a fantasy that is not doing you any service. This is when the doubt is going to help you. This is when being serious and having a sober mind is going to help turn that situation around. So there's much about this eclipse that is really playing into this Mercury Saturn piece. Now, while this is the first eclipse in Pisces and Virgo, the nodes are still in Aries and Libra. And we're going to have a Libra, our last Libra eclipse, I believe. It's a solar eclipse coming on October 2nd here, and I hope to do another video around that. But we must know that, well, and just spoiler alert, there's a lot of people-pleasing tendencies that might be needed to let go. And so we might need to pair that with some of the things I'm talking here today, but just spoiler alert for that eclipse. But it's important to note that it won't be until let me get my dates here. It won't be until January 11th, 2025. Let me pull that up on the chart here. So January 11th, 2025 is when we have the nodes move over officially. And so we're really going to start to feel those eclipses when the nodes get into that place and we are starting to wrap up that Aries Libra story, which we're still very invested in. Don't get me wrong. There is so much. We still have two solar eclipses in both of these signs. We have Mars, who's going to go retrograde, which rules the North Node on December 7th. And then we're going to have Venus go retrograde. Well, Venus will go retrograde once the nodes move over, but that piece is still going, the relationship planets and the Mars and Venus stories. But I did want to just point out that this is when the actual nodal shift takes place on January 11th. And particularly, the North Node will reach this lunar eclipse degree in mid-May. Now, granted, by this time we'll have a lunar eclipse in Virgo that's close to these same degrees, and so we'll be in these kind of double lunar eclipse zones. But when it comes to really living this Pisces energy and maybe everything that we are imagining or bringing forth for in this moment, it has a high degree of probability. I don't think that's a word. Probability, probability, that these are going to be, this energy will be activated, especially in April. There's so much that's going on. I'm just going to throw the chart over here real quick. Especially starting March, we see that, I got to point it out. Oh man, Neptune is getting me today. Maybe I'm in the flow, but trying to find specifics. Okay, so speaking of Neptune, Neptune moves into Aries at that time. Look at this, the North Node that's near the eclipse degree, right? We're talking about 27 Pisces is now made it over there, but we see Venus retrograde over it. Mercury's going to retrograde over it. Neptune is going to be conjunct it about a month or so earlier. Saturn's going to conjunct it. Like, this area is lit up, especially in April. So there'll be a compound of all this eclipse energy that will happen next eclipse season. As you can see, just this chart alone, we're coming right off of that Aries solar eclipse. So I wanted to point out that time frame for, in a very Jupiterian style, that bigger picture vision that I was talking about. So let's go back, actually. So here's that next, oh, that's the solar eclipse. So here's the next eclipse that's going to be in this Pisces Virgo zone, and that's going to be March 13th, 2025. You see the moon here at 23 degrees of Virgo. And we see that that's happening during the Sun-Saturn conjunction. So once again, we are in this Saturnian, Neptunian vortex of sorts. But we're not there yet. So let's go back to our eclipse, because there's still a couple things I want to tell you before I leave you here today. Now, of course, if you have mutable planets at about 25 degrees, well, let's just say 23 to 28, but especially around 25. The closer, the better. You're going to feel this eclipse because you're going through Neptune transits. You're going to be going through Jupiter transits. You're not there yet. Jupiter's going to retrograde, and you'll get your Jupiter transit basically next spring, when that time period that I'm talking about, April, May, etc. Because Jupiter will move into Cancer, I believe June 9th. Check me on that date, but I think that's it. Yeah, so this can be a turning point around your Neptune story, that planet, whatever planet has been in that path. I know I saw this morning that old Puff Daddy there got arrested after he had been under allegations for so long. And right. And so what does he have? The sun is basically conjunct, and this moon is opposing his Pluto. And that's not the only thing that's going on. He actually was born with Mercury opposing Saturn retrograde. So he's having what you call a holographic transit. And his sun in Scorpio is about the same separation as Mercury with the sun here. So he's having these holographic transits, which are fascinating in themselves. What a holographic transit is when say you have an aspect in your birth chart. Say you have Venus squaring Uranus in your birth chart. Now, when Venus squares Uranus in the sky, it doesn't matter where it is, you're having a holographic transit because you're born with that energy. Might not be in the same place, but you will acutely feel it more, right? And you think about Saturn as the authorities. It makes me think if Pup Daddy might be a little mercurial, but who knows? Anyways, I digress. I got on a little tangent there, but I thought that was interesting, right? Because he's going through Neptune opposing his Pluto, and these someone who's once on power has been deceiving. There's a lot of deception and underhanded things going on, which can be both very Neptunian and Plutonian. And now he's getting caught. Anyways, so people that have about 25 degrees, give or take, immutable signs, and that can be angles as well. Angles especially important. So pay attention to that and really feel in, because you might be at a particular change more than other people. So I'm going to stop sharing the chart here for a second and talk to you directly, because I did pull some cards because I wanted to share some ways to work with the energy, which I feel like I have, but we're going to double down on this, because when I pull cards, it's not coming from my own thoughts. And granted, I hope that I'm working on intuition and in the flow of the cosmic sphere when I do this work, but I really like the use of, spirit. Tell me what give us some pairs so that we can work with them. Well, the first one I got, so I pulled a couple pairs from a deck called Poesis. I know it's a shame I'm not using my tarot of her in this particular pull, but sometimes I like to use oracle decks. And spoiler alerts, we hope to do an oracle deck in the future. Speaking it out loud, so it may be. But Poesis, this is a fabulous little oracle here by Andrea Wan. And the first pairing I got was Soul Escape. If that's not Pisces, right? I mean, look at this. Oh, look at this card. Look at the soul. I feel like the soul is trapped in this. Every time I see this card, I feel like the soul is trapped in some way. But maybe that's just my soul talking. What am I trapped over? But the soul is inside, right? Is this cosmic being. And look, there's a heart. Pisces is universal love. And why there is forgiveness and compassion, because that is at the heart of all of our souls if we can just access it. And the escape, look at this, the boats on the way to the island. And so the deserted island that we can take time to connect with. And so to me, this was saying this is a time to escape into your soul. That's one thing it's saying. To travel where it resides. How do you access that? That's different for different people. I can say meditation. I could say yoga. I could say take a walk. I could say listen to some music. I could say, jump in the ocean, take a bath, get your paints out, see what picture just magically arrives. I mean, art is a beautiful way to connect with the soul. So there is this need to travel to where the soul resides now, to escape in sake of the soul, and maybe to address where you've been escaping your soul's calling or what the soul has been calling for. Because sometimes we evade what is most important to our evolution and our higher selves. Now, my second pairing, which I thought was pretty fascinating, was Simplify, very Virgo, Fear. So if this isn't Mercury opposing, let's get on this side. If this isn't Mercury opposing Saturn, I don't know what is. So simplify fear. Because really fear can seem larger than life when we're in it. If we're afraid of something, that's why they call it false evidence appearing real. Because when you're afraid of something, it's your monster, it's your dragon, right? Eclipses are the dragon's head and the dragon's tail. What's your dragon? Because this is the time to break out of what it is that you're afraid of. And Virgo helps us to simplify it, to break it down, to put it in bite-sized chunks. If it's like a big thing we have to do, like me, I still need to do my taxes. And so I'm afraid of doing my taxes. I don't know why. It's just numbers. So break it down. simplify it in a way that it's easy to digest. Because if you pick apart your monster, if you pick apart your dragon, it's not as intimidating, right? So I thought even if we start to combine these two, uh, it's, we if we deal with our feelers, bleh, deal with fears that keep us from pursuing our soul's mission, at least in this point of the story. So that's like the together. And if that message resonates with you, go for it. Now, I did pull a couple cards for myself this morning, and I thought they were good enough just to share. So I'll kind of end on this note. And this is from a deck. Gosh, where did I put it? It's called the Ripple deck. Another oracle deck by Natalie Rothfels and Steph Stern. I got this on Kickstarter. Um, it's an interesting deck because it's meant to be worked with group work, which is fascinating. So if you do group work, it's a great deck. Anyways, so I always like to ask in the morning, especially of this deck, what message of empowerment do you have for me today? And so I got experimentation with forgiveness. And to me, this really spoke of the moon moving between the square to Jupiter in Gemini and the conjunction to Neptune, right? And I mean, essentially, the sun is going to meet Neptune in a couple days' time, which will add, it's not just this moment, the eclipse is, the sun will then move on and really shine a light on that Neptunian energy, especially once the moon gets to Gemini that'll be last quarter. Well, no, I think I'm speaking too soon. Let me just look on. I gotta be accurate here. Um, so the moon is going to be at that space. Well, actually, that's September 23rd. So that'll be after our, we're going to have last quarter. That's right, in Cancer this time around. But we'll get we're gonna get that Neptunian hit then. So let me just tell you when the sun is going to pose Neptune. That is going to be this Friday. So basically during the weekend right before the equinox. So back to experimentation with forgiveness, right? This kind of doubled down on what I was talking about compassion and empathy, and also these changing and transitionary times. Because when we're in change, we have to experiment. We have to take certain risks. We don't know how certain things are going to turn out. We can't keep our same level of control. We have to have curiosity, right? Because it all comes down to mutable energy is collecting information. So we are, collecting information, we're communicating in new ways, and that could be to another person, that can be with ourselves. But experiment in how you can forgive yourself, others, the world, the collective. We are in trying times right now in many respects. And forgiveness is such an underrated gesture, emotion. I'm like, how do you label forgiveness? But I think it's a big piece to being able to hear the soul and assimilate its message. It's a big piece to simplify the complexities and the chaos we might feel that creates fear. So I guess in summary, feels very academic. In summary, I would say that the lunar eclipse in Pisces, this first of many to come in the Virgo Pisces axis, is a very divine one. And so I hope that you take the time to connect to it, to slow your pace, uh, and not just right now, but to continue the dream, to engage with it, to escape into it in a healthy way, to, yeah, build your dream world, starting today. That's what I'll leave you with. All right, everyone. Thank you for spending the time to watch this video. Please if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to this on the podcast, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or SoundCloud, you can leave a review. That would be great so other people can find me. And if you would like to get a consultation around these eclipses or any time to come, you can come over to energeticprinciples.com to book a reading and also to sign up for my newsletter. So happy eclipsing to everyone. And as always, may the stars be with you.